Everyone says Libra is the sign of peace, love, and effortless harmony. They are not. Libra is actually the sign of calculated suppression, invisible resentment, and a terrifying capacity for self-erasure. Everything you think is kindness is actually a survival mechanism, and everything you think is grace is actually a frantic attempt to keep a crumbling ceiling from falling on their heads. If you believe Libra is just about being nice, you are missing the most dangerous psychological war happening behind their smiling eyes. Before we dive into the shadows of the scales, make sure to subscribe to Beyond the Zodiac so you never miss the brutal truth about your cosmic blueprint. I have analyzed the psychological architecture of Libra for 15 years, looking past the rose-colored lenses and the aesthetic perfection. What I discovered isn't a peaceful soul, but a battlefield where the need for external validation has completely strangled the internal voice. Stay until the end, because the reason Libra stays in toxic relationships will shatter your perception of what balance actually means, and it will force you to realize that their silence is often a scream for help that they've learned to muffle with a polite smile. To understand why Libra is trapped, we must peel back the 3 layers of their psychological armor. Layer 1 is the outer mask, the diplomat. This is the version of Libra the world falls in love with. They are the social chameleons who can walk into any room and become exactly what the environment requires. They mirror your energy, agree with your opinions, and smooth over every wrinkle in the conversation. But this mask is a prison. It exists because Libra acredita que ser auténtico baguncado e às vezes desagradável é uma sentença de morte para sua posição social. Layer 2 is the defense. Compensatory compliance. This is where the shadow begins to emerge. When Libra se sente ameaçado ou neo amado, ele neo revida. Ele se torna mais agradável. They trade their boundaries for a temporary sense of peace. This é mecanismo de defesa projetado para prevenir o abandono, mas na verdade convida predadores que se alimentam de sua falta de neo. Layer 3 is the core truth, the terror of the void. Beneath the scales lies a deep-seated trauma que sugere que, esse neo estiveram refletindo outra pessoa, eles neo existem. They fear that their own identity is too chaotic or too ugly for the world to see, so they cling to the we because they are terrified of the I. This is why a Libra would rather be miserable in a toxic union than be whole and alone. Consider the story of Elena, a 34-year-old interior designer who embodied every classic Libra trait of elegance and poise. To her friends, Elena had the perfect life and a husband, Mark, who was firm but successful. But behind the closed doors of their pristine home, Elena was disappearing. For 6 years, she had mastered the art of the invisible pivot. If Mark was angry, she became a soothing balm. If Mark was controlling, she convinced herself he was just protective. One evening, the mask finally cracked. Elena had spent 3 weeks planning a small dinner party, obsessing over every detail from the linen napkins to the seating chart. When Mark arrived home, he decided on a whim that he didn't want people over. He told her to cancel at 10 minutes before the guests arrived. Instead of screaming, instead of standing her ground, Elena simply picked up her phone and began typing apologies. But as she typed, her hands began to shake so violently she dropped the device. She looked at her reflection in the hallway mirror and realized she didn't recognize the woman looking back. She wasn't a person, she was a set of reactions. She collapsed on the floor, not in anger, but in a devastating realization that she had spent her entire life building a beautiful cage out of yes. In that moment of total collapse, Elena confessed to herself that she didn't love the harmony she had created. She was terrified of the conflict she was avoiding. She realized that her kindness was actually a form of dishonesty that had allowed Mark's toxicity to flourish. This pattern isn't just a personality flaw. It is rooted in the astrological influence of Venus, the planet of attraction and value. While Venus in Taurus seeks physical comfort, Venus in Libra seeks social equilibrium. Psychologically, this manifests as an externalized self. Libra is an air sign, meaning they process the world through intellect and social structures. When a Libra is out of alignment, they use their intellect to rationalize away their own pain. They become lawyers for their own abusers, finding logical reasons why the other person is hurting or why the situation isn't that bad. To break this cycle, a Libra must undergo a radical psychological restructuring. First, you must practice the discomfort of no. You need to intentionally create small moments of friction to prove to your nervous system that the world doesn't end when you disagree. Second, you must stop being a mirror. When someone asks what you want, you are forbidden from saying, "I don't know, what do you want?" You must choose even if it's just the flavor of a drink. Third, you must identify peace versus passivity. True peace is the presence of justice, not just the absence of noise. If you are quiet while being mistreated, you aren't being peaceful. You are being complicit in your own destruction. Fourth, you must embrace your inner Aries, your polar opposite. You need to reclaim your right to be angry, selfish, and loud. If you love a Libra, here's what you need to know. Their constant agreement isn't a sign of a perfect relationship. It's a sign that they don't trust you enough to handle their truth. Their silence isn't contentment. It's a reservoir of unexpressed needs that will eventually turn into a bitter poison. You have a choice. You can continue to enjoy the ease of their compliance, or you can actually love the human being underneath. If you want to save your relationship with a Libra, you must tell them this: "I don't want your agreement, I want your honesty. I am strong enough to handle your anger, your mess, and your no. Please stop protecting me from who you really are." You have to create a space so safe that they feel they can finally put down the scales and just breathe. You must realize that when they finally snap and show their shadow, that is the greatest gift of trust they could ever give you. Don't punish them for it. Meet them in that darkness and tell them they are still beautiful when they are unpolished. Libra isn't the sign of the perfect partner. Libra é o signo de supresso calculada, ressentimento invisível e uma terrible capacidade de auto-apagamento. They are not shallow and they are not weak. They are simply exhausted from carrying the weight of everyone else's comfort on their shoulders. They have spent so long making sure the scales are balanced for everyone else that they have forgotten they are allowed to be one of the weights on that scale. If you are a Libra, I have to ask you, who would you be if you stopped trying to be liked? What would happen if you let the glass shatter instead of holding it together with your bare, bleeding hands? The world can handle your truth, but the question is, can you handle the freedom that comes with it? It is time to stop being an ornament in someone else's life and start being the architect of your own. Comment below if you have ever felt trapped by your own niceness. Let's talk about the cost of harmony. In our next video, we are going deep into the intense, transformative shadows of Scorpio, the sign that knows exactly what Libra is hiding. Don't forget to like and share this if you're ready to stop people pleasing and start living.